All right, my friends, J.R. Dukes at your service. Appreciate everybody joining me today. Thanks for being here. Let's make sure everything is working the way it should work. Hello to everyone on the X platform. Thanks for joining me. On X, you can always find me at Reach J.R. Dukes, and of course on YouTube right here at J.R. Dukes. Hello to everyone, and hello to our friends on Twitch. Nice everybody be here today. Got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of things we're going to talk about. Most of it pertains to Donald Trump and the Supreme Court hearing today. I thought it was a interesting hearing. We're going to talk about it in just 1 second. All right, if you haven't done so already, please introduce yourself to the chat. Already have my friend from Sapphire Ridge News in the chat. Thank you for being here. And of course, American Nana, always a pleasure having you in the chat. So hello, everyone. By the way, American Nana, I appreciate you reaching out to me and giving me some information that you had on your mind. It's always my pleasure to talk, discuss whatever you guys want to talk about, whatever benefit, whatever help I can give. I'm here for it. My contact information, of course, is at the bottom of your screen, scrolling across. In addition to that, if you would like to be in today's chat, if you like to do more than necessarily ask a question in the chat, which you're always welcome to do, you're welcome to join via video, or simply go ahead and hit that same link and you can kind of just call in. And make sure I pop a clear link in there so everybody has it. This is the link. And again, you have an option to join by video, or you can just go ahead and, of course, join by call-in. Kind of like phoning a friend on the movie Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I used to love the way they just had that call a friend or whatnot. All right, looks like we're ready to go. Thanks again for everybody being here. Lando, appreciate you being here from Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay, great. Seems like we generally get people all over the world at times, which always makes something interesting to check into. All right, I think everything's clear. Looks like the communication is going on. So a lot happening today. Lots happening today. Let me give you a quick preview of what I hope we can talk about today. Of course, the Supreme Court case that I was talking about yesterday was heard. It actually went on for quite some time. I believe it was almost 3 hours long, and it was an interesting case. And this case has to do with, it's coming from the state of Tennessee, but it's kind of an issue that's been all over the United States. And that has to do with whether or not children can receive care that effectively changes their sex from one sex to another. We're going to talk about that. We also had Justice Kagan come out with some interesting comments pertaining to that very subject. This is the actual lawyer that was handling the case on behalf of his client from the state of Tennessee. We're also going to talk about Mayor Adams. Been talking about for some time how he's kind of getting closer and more cozy, I guess is the best way to say it, with Donald Trump. I predicted that, and I still think that's going to happen. You're going to see him lean harder and become best friends, if you will, with Donald Trump. I think, in part, he wants to do what's right for the city of New York, and I think on the other hand, he wants to see about getting a pardon. Obviously, the Southern District of New York. As a matter of fact, I don't think it's technically the Southern District of New York. It is the one of the agencies. I think it's the Attorney General there in New York. I'll have to double check. I know one of the agencies said, "Hey, there's no case here. We're not going to prosecute," and yet you had the other agency turn around and indict him, arrest him, and it all has to do with what I consider basically nothing. And my friends, of course, top story of today, it's just a shame. It's just terrible. We've been talking about sweet Fani Willis for quite some time, the big Fani Willis from the great, and I'm being a little bit joking about this, but we all know Fulton County is extremely corrupt. Unfortunately, she was reelected to another term in this last election as the Fulton County DA. She stubbornly refuses to let go of this case, and I have some thoughts pertaining to this. I also have some documents for us to go over pertaining to Fani Willis. It's not looking good, my friends. Fani Willis in that case is kind of falling by the wayside, to put it bluntly. In addition to all this, you have Donald Trump. He has went to the Georgia Court of Appeals. It's what's called an interlocutory appeal. Remember, generally for an appeal, you have to wait to all of the case is completed before you appeal. In some states, you can file what's called an interlocutory appeal under certain circumstances, and that is essentially what the President Donald Trump is working towards and trying to do. Same thing going on with Judge Merchant in New York State. You have him pleading with the judge, giving the judge an off-ramp. Hey, judge, please wake up. You cannot pursue this case. Alvin Bragg, of course, the district attorney there in New York City, he wants to effectively continue this case. Can you imagine that? You're indicted for a case. You've been convicted technically in the case. Now, under New York law, you're not technically a convicted felon until sentencing. So when you hear people say it's a convicted felon, that's technically not true. However, he's desperately trying to give Judge Merchant an off-ramp. I really think these people are going to have a very rude awakening very soon, and they deserve what they get, because I'm very confident that Donald Trump and his new administration, rightfully so, is going to have the new attorney general, which hopefully will be Pam Bondi. She knows exactly what to do to go after these people that have engaged in this illegal and corrupt lawfare. But we'll see how it works, and I'll definitely keep you posted about it right here. So let's go ahead. I want to try to keep the power hour to a power hour. So let's go ahead and dive in first to, let me get my settings right here straightened up. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a look just at what I call the Duke's feed. There's not a whole lot on True Social today other than Donald Trump basically saying and feeling different positions that he has. He cited a couple news stories and stuff like that, but nothing extremely interesting. Nobody that's like, I would say it's not one of his top major pick announcements right now. And of course, in the news too, there's a lot of rumors on that Pete what's his name? Hegseth. I think that's how you say his last name. But anyway, Pete, really, really in jeopardy. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. It's a shame what's going on with his specific nomination. We'll have to see exactly how this works out. But the rumor is that if he does not work out, President Donald Trump is looking to put in right here from the state of Florida, our own Governor DeSantis. So that's pretty interesting how times change depending if you're running against one another or not. Oh, yeah. Now, Sapphire is right. Todd Blanche is the incoming deputy AG. That is correct. And that, of course, is one of Donald Trump's personal lawyers. I think that's like the number 2 position in the AG's office over there. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's definitely a top position. And I think Todd would be a perfect fit, a perfect lieutenant, if you will, for AG Pam Bondi. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few of these little news clips that I want us to take a quick peek at now. You were familiar that I really have a...
What do you think we're going to see?
Of Dr. Phil. I've been disappointed when he went to Madison Square Garden and he kind of backed off. Well, I don't really think you can say he kind of backed off. He really, really backed off his endorsement. It was clearly a full-throated endorsement of Donald Trump. After he gave that speech, I could just imagine the huge amount of backlash he got. And I've never seen Dr. Phil get cold feet, but that's exactly what he did. And of course, we talked about it on this program. He, I think it was Piers Morgan, he was given an interview with, and he said that was kind of a protest script, a protest speech that he gave. He was upset because Kamala Harris would not sit down for an interview with him, despite the fact he repeatedly asked for an interview to basically get her side of the story. And according to what he said, he offered to give the exact same script he said in front of the audience at Donald Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden, except he'd cross out the word Trump and put in Kamala Harris. I'm not sure exactly how that would work, but she chickened out of that and decided not to go with that, which of course was one of her many, many mistakes in this particular campaign. But I'm going to go ahead and give Dr. Phil the benefit of the doubt. Generally, I like him. I like what he is trying to do with his new Merritt Street News program. But it's sad when you see someone get cold feet. I learned a long time ago, if you make a decision, don't back off the decision. Don't get me wrong, it depends on the decision. If you make a bad decision, make the decision right, is what I have always lived by. In this particular context, Dr. Phil did the worst possible thing, because instead of just making one group of people mad at you, which would be Kamala Harris supporters, he ended up making everybody mad, because he gave this endorsement of Donald Trump and then pulled back And, it just makes everybody mad at you. So you would think somebody as astute as Dr. Phil could see that, but I could imagine he had a ton of pressure applied to him. And so at first, Todd sent a letter to Judge Merchant. I have that letter, and it's a lengthy letter. We're not going to be able to read each and every part of it, but we got certain things I want to hit on this particular. I don't know if it's the actual letter or the actual pleadings, but I have it, and we're going to take a look at that very shortly. So thanks for that, Sapphire. American Anna DeSantis said, no, thank you. I did not know that. That must be something I did not hear. And they said they have the votes for confirmation of Pete this afternoon, unless something happened. Okay, I was not aware of that. If that is the case, that's fantastic. And Sapphire says that is correct. So if that works out and Pete gets in, I think it's fantastic. I will say Pete made a very good strategic move. And I think what he did is effectively tell some of the senators he was meeting with, specifically some of the female senators that are on the Republican side, the Alaskan senator, the Maine senator, the senator from Maine, told them that if he is confirmed, he will abstain from all alcohol. And I think that's a good trade. I think that will instill confidence, build a little confidence. I think that's a good play on his part. All right, let's take a quick peek at this, and I want to move on because I do have a video of Pete Hegseth, and then we can talk further about that.
I'm here with Tom Holman. We've just landed in Arizona. We're headed to the border. We're going to talk to the guys and find out what's going on for real.
We're 47 days up for inauguration. We're not waiting. Today.
What do you think we're going to see?
I think we're going to see exactly what this administration has done to the most secure border in my lifetime. And we're going to develop plans today to help these sheriffs make their community safer and secure the border once again.
These are some brave men and women down here working hard, so we're going to hear what they have to say.
All right, good. Hopefully I have some video on this tomorrow with Dr. Phil and Tom Holman. The borders are, that would be awesome as far as I'm concerned. Also, it does look like I'm having a little bit of video feed problems again. They're supposed to be working on that with Spectrum. It's extremely irritating and aggravating, and I apologize for that, but I assume everybody can hear me unless you state otherwise in the chat. If it freezes from time to time, accept my apologies ahead of time. The good news is, I guess, according to Sapphire, is that y'all can hear me as far as my voice goes, and I think that that is probably a good trade-off because it's just intermittent and from time to time. So let's go ahead and continue. Now, this is another little interesting piece. Folks, I can hear the shredders going off in Washington, D.C. right now. I can hear it. It sounds like a huge roar of a shredding lion. Now, of course, I'm just giving something as a graphic illustration here, but the fact is there has to be huge shredding parties going on right now in all agencies because they know a new sheriff is coming to town. They know accountability is on the horizon. They know that these individuals that engaged in lawfare and effectively took our great nation and made it a de facto banana republic is outrageous. And I'm normally an even mind, kind of a calm individual, but it does get my blood boiling when I think about it. A lot of things we can disagree on, a lot of things we can fight about as Americans, no doubt about that. But when you take our great country and you turn it into a de facto banana republic, that really gets under my skin because I appreciate and know how serious the law is and how important it is for our institutions to be free of corruption. It's probably one of the primary reasons the great Roman Empire fell, my friends, was in part because of corruption. And when you have lawfare, that is de facto corruption. Call it whatever you want, but that is something that we should all understand just how serious it was. And when you look back at this last election, there's no doubt that God has given each and every one of us a great redo, an effort to get this right. But we have to be cognizant of the fact that Donald Trump won. He did win the popular vote, and as a Republican, that is phenomenal. But had this went another 2 or 3% the other way, we would be having a very different conversation today. It is true that Donald Trump won a landslide as far as electoral college is concerned. But the last time I checked the numbers, we're looking at maybe 2.5 million votes, which is a lot of votes, and even more so because he's a Republican. But understand, 2.5 million votes out of what, 140, 150 million votes is statistically tight. And I just want to make sure we all understand that and that we all appreciate that for what it is. Okay. And we want to thank Rosemary Fiera. Thank you for being here, sweetheart, as always. Thank you for being here. And of course, my friend Julianne. Julianne, thank you for being here. Yes, you know they are destroying records. Absolutely. That's what's going on. The Attorney General, I think his name is Ken Paxton from the great state of Texas, has also been filing suit and been sending letters to a bunch of different agencies, specifically the DOJ, the FBI, and some of these other ABC agencies, if you will, letting them know, cease and desist, do not shred, do not destroy. We have litigation coming down the pike, and that's what he's trying to do, is to preserve all the records that they can possibly save. And I think that is fantastic. Sapphire, yes, last week there were reports of several shredder trucks. That's what they do nowadays. I don't know if you all have seen these or not, but they got these huge shredder trucks that they literally will drive up to your business. I used to use them occasionally too. Now, the shredder trucks are more of a newer novelty that they have now, but I've used them myself. You have to keep track of your documents. You don't want to nowadays just throw them in the trash can, because there's all kinds of people that have some type of malintent in their heart, if you will. They will go through trash, go through whatever, get informations of other customers, and basically they're going to engage in some type of identity theft. At least that is the potential. Also, there are generally state and federal laws that require businesses, especially businesses of a certain size, that you have to shred documents that contain personal information of a customer. Kind of sounds like common sense, but these trucks are real nice. And they're nice because they pull up to your office. You simply wheel out your papers, whatever it is you got to shred. They will dump it in their truck, and you can sit there and watch it drop out of the bottom of the trunk. Zoop, done. Easy peasy, nice and quick. Does not take a long time at all. And Julianne, offering plea deals for whistleblowers might help. Absolutely. I think that that's a good way to do it. That's generally an MO of any good prosecutor. You generally have a target in mind, exactly like they did President Donald Trump. He's the target. But they went ahead, especially if you look at the Fani Willis case, she indicted what, 20 some other alleged co-conspirators. And the idea was she doesn't care anything about these peons. She wants to get a guilty plea and get an agreement with them for cooperation. She wants them to say what she wants them to say, because her target was to take down Donald Trump before he becomes president of the United States. Extremely unfortunate. That is wholly inappropriate. That's not the way the United States government was ever meant to operate, but that's what we got. And that's one of the reasons I'm so outraged about a lot of this. But anyway, here's Josh Hawley. He says, I'm putting DOJ FBI notice. Don't shred a single document. Don't delete a single file. Accountability is coming. The Judiciary Committee will investigate and find out who authorized spying on Christians, attacks on profilers, and vendettas against Trump. Remember the FBI going after moms and dads that are at PTA meetings or school board meetings trying to support and advocate for their children? That is what they have to put a stop to. And again, I have been of the school that, listen, we ought to just kind of put this behind us. Donald Trump needs to step up and be a bigger man and put a stop to this lawfare, kind of like George Washington did. One of my favorite non-religious history figures in all of history, because he did one thing I just don't think he gets enough credit for. And what he did is he was at the pinnacle of power. He, of course, was the first president of the United States. And at that time, he did something that, to my knowledge, I cannot find nothing to defeat what I'm about to tell you. What he did was unprecedented at the time. And that is, without one person being shot, killed, no bloodshed, in other words, President George Washington said, I'm done. And he peacefully transferred power to, I believe it's John Adams, the second president of the United States. And I just don't think he gets enough credit in the credit books or in the history books pertaining to that. So I just submit that for whatever, because I think he does not get enough credit on that. This particular letter says, Honorable Merrick Garland, Attorney General of the United States, And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I have received reports that under your leadership, DOJ and FBI employees are destroying records and other documents in an effort to conceal the widespread misconduct that took place under the Biden administration. You must immediately stop this attempt to evade accountability and should terminate any employees involved. Further, you must preserve all department and bureau documents in anticipation of congressional investigations to come. Would not want to be on the receiving end of that document. And I wanted to finish my last thought. Donald Trump, at first I was thinking he could just walk away. He could just set it straight. But here's the problem. I am now of the opinion that if he does not go after these bad actors, these bad individuals that brought this lawfare into reality, it's going to happen again. Because it has to be addressed. It has to be punished. These people must be held accountable. And I will give you the following exhibits as proof that I'm correct. When Donald Trump was first elected the second time around, you had sweet Letitia James from New York Attorney General's office come out and give a speech. I believe she was with the governor of New York, effectively saying, Donald Trump, we're still coming after you. Nothing's changed. We're still going to war with you, sir. And you had, I believe it was the mayor of Chicago echoing similar sentiments, the mayor of Denver. You had other officials coming forward with similar language like that. I mean, wow. Just a simple congratulations, and we look forward to working with you would have been appropriate, but not from these people. These are the kind of people that are happy to destroy our country in their effort to have career advancement, to have notoriety, to have their name in the history books as the man or woman that took down a great man like Donald Trump. That's all this is about, folks. This is real easy. This is not difficult to figure out. That's what this whole thing is about. It's about advancement. It's about power. It's about money. It's about prestige. And that's unfortunate, but that, especially when it comes to attorney generals, prosecutors, DAs, I know this firsthand. I have many friends that are in positions like that, and I hear all these stories. Instead of advocating and going forward and doing what justice demands, they're looking to put a notch in their belt, so to speak. I put this many people in prison. I did this. I did that. And that is so sad, so shameful, highly inappropriate, and it has to be exposed for what it is. My friend Julianne says Democrats socked it too. Tiffany Henyard via caucus, new guy in charge now. Yeah, that's exactly how they roll. There's another woman they have in prison too that's related to this election stuff. You know, they're continuing to hammer these J6 defendants, hostages is what I like to call them, along with President Donald Trump. All these J6ers, they are actively going after them. I think yesterday, 4 trials started across the country pertaining to events on that particular day, on January 6th. Yeah, you have Hunter Biden that has engaged in clearly child, you know what I'm talking about, type of allegations. And I saw some kind of nonsense on Twitter that I don't care to see again. Wasn't nothing explicit, but it was Biden with someone that is highly inappropriate. But the point is, an individual that committed those types of crimes and he gets to just walk. Now, that is, of course, a power of the presidency, but the way that Joe Biden came out with that particular pardon, and he granted it as a to cover everything, known or unknown. Again, I've talked about this yesterday and last week. This is really odd. I have written releases for certain things in my business career. You just generally don't word things like that, that this covers any and all allegations, events, known or unknown. It endures to the benefits of any agents, independent contractors, employees, customers, or anyone who may be in their privity. I mean, this is just language, folks, that are generally in some type of odd legal document, and to see that in a pardon, and of course I'm paraphrasing, not every word's in there, so I don't want to seem like I'm being disingenuous about it. It's just odd, covering from every crime. And he started that back in 2014, about the same time that Hunter Biden was appointed to that Burisma board, whatever that was, between China and Ukraine. And what that effectively does, it's clear that President Joe Biden has given him this cover to protect Joe Biden, the Joe Biden family. It's going to be interesting to see where this all ends up. But unfortunately, it pains me to say this. We have no choice. Donald Trump has no choice but to go after these people. And I'm predicting this now. Before Joe Biden leaves office, this is going to be the normal business for now on. When a president leaves office, he's going to have to pardon his family. He's going to have to pardon his children. He's going to have to give a blanket pardon to anyone in his privity. That's just the way it's going to have to be, because once a bell is rung, you know how it is, my friends. It never stops in life. When someone starts something, it's just not going to end, unfortunately. I hope Donald Trump can find a way to end it. I hope sounder, more judgmental, just calmer, wiser people at the end of the day figure out a way out of this mess. But for now, it's not retribution. It's putting a stop to this that has to be sought. And that's the reason why this has to continue. Julianne, no type of allegation. The video of Hunter, and his niece was released to the public years ago. That is the better reason for him to be in prison. Again, there's some weird stuff going on. And, listen, the relations with adults, even the allegations pertaining to prostitutes. Listen, that's not for me, but personally, that doesn't bother me. Not in the sense of someone needs to go to prison. These type of things are old as mankind. I mean, people, even in the Bible, people engaged in services like that. But just like Julianne said, underage girls, this type of stuff, that's the stuff that's outrageous, and it cannot be tolerated. In addition to what I mentioned earlier about the fact that this is clear prima facie evidence of corruption on its face. I mean, who do you think the big guy is? We all know who the big guy is. It's his dad, and he was talking in code. Very clear and very evident, in my humble opinion. Now, let's take a look at this video here. I saw this earlier today. I actually was watching this on CNN earlier. This is Pete Hegseth, a lawyer, and he's being questioned about his client, of course, Pete Hegseth, and the allegations. And remember this too: when you hear these allegations, we went over the complete police report in a live stream, I think last week or within the last 2 weeks. We reviewed it in detail. My take on it, there's no there. And I have heard from other sources that at one point the police in California were looking to charge the female participant in this event, whatever appropriate noun is to be used. She was looked at one time for being the person that victimized Pete. I don't know if you heard that or not, but that's what I heard. But at the end of the day, clearly, if you believe everything in the police report, I don't see any crime. There's nothing, there's no there. She even states, I hated this guy, I didn't like this guy, and yet they end up with a lot of drinking between the two of them, and they end up in a hotel room. And then she claims after they're done, she goes back to the hotel where her husband is. And I don't want to get any more graphic about it than that. This is just a mess, just an absolute mess. And I don't see that as being a credible report that we should take any type of solace in whatsoever. But anyway, let's go ahead and listen to his attorney give a defense of Pete Hegseth.
Specifics they don't have. And this is the pattern, is that we have all these anonymous complaints where people are saying things, they aren't giving any specifics, they don't have any corroboration whatsoever. And yet the people who were also there at the time are willing to come on the record by name, on camera, and say, this didn't happen. It's the same thing at CVA, it's the same thing at Fox, it's the same thing at the Veterans for Freedom. Every single one of these, you have a few anonymous people saying it, and yet the people who come on the record and say, this is my name, this never happened. And this is
this is extremely uncomfortable to me. And this goes back to the hearing with Justice, what was that one justice? The one where the guy was questioned about his relations in high school, his relations in college, and his children and family have to listen to that type of nonsense. His name will pop into my head here in a minute. If you know who I'm talking about, you can text it in the comments there. But it's ridiculous, and I'm afraid. And there's nothing wrong with women filling these positions, but we don't want we don't necessarily just want men. We don't necessarily just want women. We want the best person to fill these jobs. But the way these hearings are going nowadays, it's almost like you have to appoint a woman just to get away from the sexual nonsense that goes on in all these hearings. I mean, that's kind of where we're headed to if something doesn't change. It's pretty it's pretty shameful is
No matter where
about
he
the only
is.
way I can say it.
Well, there's
So
one
here's a funny little piece from Jesse Waters on Joe Biden and this pardon and him taking off to go overseas. Let's take a quick peek
thing
at this.
Biden's consistent about. No matter where he is or what he's doing, he looks lost. Here's the president in Africa.
Looks like he's not even able to focus where he wants to walk. The other leader has to guide him around. Stop. Look at that. Has to grab him to help him step up. Unbelievable. Look at that. He holds his hand out. He's not even able to recognize he wants to shake hands.
Biden might look confused, but he's getting very comfortable. He might not come back.
We Bidens are like poor relatives. We show up when we're invited, stay longer than we should, eat all your food, don't go into the home.
He's saying he's not going to
Here's
leave.
the real reason Biden's in Africa. The media is not going to tell you this. He's building rail lines that connect mines so little African kids can dig up the minerals we need for the Green New Deal. You know, so we can have windmills that pockmark our coastlines and subsidized electric cars no one wants. Yeah, that's why he's there.
Yeah, that's a good point by Jesse. That's there may be some absolute truth to that. He's over there in Africa. Obviously, he wants to run away after granting that ridiculous pardon after saying repeatedly, it was more like gaslighting, that he was not going to pardon his son. And we all know that that was nonsense. I knew it when it happened. It was nonsense. And let me clear one thing up too. We've touched on this, but I don't have a problem with the fact that he pardoned his son. I don't think any of us in that situation would let our only living child go to prison for 20 or 25 years when we have the ability to stop it. I don't think anybody would allow that to happen. I know I wouldn't allow that to happen. That part I don't have a problem with. The problem I have is the fact that he's been gaslighting all of us for some time now. I knew the pardon was coming as soon as I heard in that last case in California that he just went ahead and pled guilty. There was no deal. There was no discussion with the prosecution that if I plead guilty, we agree to this type of sentencing. I mean, that's generally what happens. He just said, I pled guilty and I'll show up sometime in December and I will allow the judge to pass whatever the judgment is. And even the judge today came out very aggravated about this entire situation. And yeah, thank you, Julianne. It's Kavanaugh. That's right. Kavanaugh was the one at that hearing, and he was brutalized during that hearing. They were sitting there questioning him as to whether or not he had adult relations when he was in college or whether he did not. I mean, that's the kind of conversation we have to nominate an individual to be one of the associate justices on the highest court in the land, I would argue, in the world. And that's what this has deteriorated to. This is not something we should be sitting around discussing or talking about. It's just complete and utter nonsense that this is what these hearings have deteriorated into and what they have become. And I, for one, just think that's just absolutely unacceptable. Sapphire says, right, a pardon of this type equals immunity. And once you are given immunity, you are no longer have Fifth Amendment protection. That is a good thing, too. When they subpoena Hunter Biden in before Congress, he will have to answer their questions. If he does not answer their questions and or if he lies during the answering their questions, that is not covered by this pardon. That's a future crime, and he could be held properly accountable for anything that that he says that is not correct. I wouldn't want to be in Hunter Biden's shoes walking in there having to ask those type questions, because that's one of the main reasons I tell you don't ever talk to police or law enforcement officers. They're going to find a way to hang him ever how he answers those questions. I mean, it's like walking through a minefield. I think that's probably the best way to describe having to be in that particular situation. So here is our buddy over at CNN. He is rather newer over there. At least I haven't seen him to the last few weeks. I don't know if he just took a job there, but this is Scott Jennings, and he's really putting these people, he's taking them to task. Let's put it that way. When they are sitting there criticizing Hegseth and some of these others. So let's listen to this for a minute.
I don't want to be bringing back waterboarding. I don't want to be a country that tortures people, especially for the.
Yeah, make no mistake about it. It's not just Pete. They're hammering almost all of President Trump's nominees. They are trying to find a way to go through and smear them. I like the way that, Donald Trump has that book, The Art of the Deal. Wrote in one of the captions here in one of these videos is something to do with that. What you're witnessing is what I would call the art of the smear. Very unfortunate. That's one of the reasons that Donald Trump took such a long time, a very long time, in signing an agreement with the FBI to have the backgrounds of individuals checked out, because how they operate. This is not his first time in the rodeo, so to speak. The second term, he has the gift of having perspective. He knows how this process works. They're going to go back on each one of these individuals. They're going to talk to everybody they've ever talked to in their entire life, anything they've ever done in their entire life. They're going to find out about it, sensationalize it, and then leak it to the press. And then we have these conversations every night. It's going to be the same type of nonsense, unfortunately.
The kind of country that's going to be using the military against our own citizens.
Well, wait,
this kind of thing
what does that
concerns
mean?
me.
What do you mean use against our own citizens?
I'm talking about
You said blue
sending.
states behave. What do you mean? What are you talking about?
I'm talking about sending the military into blue states to make them behave.
What
Getting
is that?
Gavin Newsom under control. Getting J.P. Pritzker under control.
What are you
making
talking
sure.
about? What do
I'm
you mean?
talking
Like
about
sitting
things
into
that
the
Donald
state
Trump has
capitol
actually
to
said.
commandeer the state government?
I hope not, but I'm definitely, he's definitely talked about that. I don't know why you're acting like you've never
using the
heard this
military
before.
to suppress in the Black Lives Matter era those
Yes.
protests in the street.
He was there
That's
himself.
actually
I just make sure I understand your position. That you believe Donald Trump is going to use the military to set up effectively like coups in state capitals of states that he didn't win?
I think you're taking it a step or two.
No, she
too
said
far.
make blue states behave, and she
That's
also
what she
said
said.
round up immigrants. That's not true.
Well,
It's deport illegal immigrants.
Scott,
I think you just need to be a
Scott, I
little
don't know
more
why
precise
you're
about these
acting- no,
attacks.
Okay, well,
I'm sorry.
hold on. I mean, look, I think you're right. Let's be precise. Trump has wanted to use the military to do things domestically that actually the military is not allowed to do. I think that's the point that she's making.
Like what?
Like deport illegal immigrants. That is actually not a function of the military.
The military can absolutely be used to work
Right.
with local officials to provide military resources, but working with other parts of the federal.
Yeah, and he should also mention, I believe it's like a 1797 law that Donald Trump is going to use that allows him to use the military to expel effectively where you just have uncontrolled borders. You have an invasion, a de facto invasion. And in that situation, he's allowed to use these laws. They're old laws, but they're laws. They're lawful laws on the books. And that's exactly what President Trump is going to do. And it's perfectly legal, no matter what they tell you on the news, no matter what you hear through these so-called legacy medias. It's legal, it's appropriate, and he's going to do it. And thank God he is, at least initially, on the people that are committing crimes. You have this Trans De La Raga gangs, all these bad actors. They need to be eliminated. Let me tell you something too. You have not heard this anywhere on the news, but you're going to hear it here. You've heard President Donald Trump say that Venezuela, for example, are emptying their prisons, and that they're sending them across the borders, people from their insane asylums, their prisons. That's absolutely true. And I can tell you, I know firsthand it's true. Y'all know my girlfriend. She's Venezuelan. She talks to people from home all the time. Well, guess what? It's really nice back home as far as safety goes. There's very little crime, very little theft or stealing, or the usual nonsense they have has decreased dramatically, because guess what? There are no prisoners. There are no one held against their will that's in jail, prison, or whatever. Because what the people in power there do is they tell them, listen, go to America. If you come back here, we're going to kill you. It's real simple. It's a good way to save a lot of money as far as running their prison population. And at the same time, they send their troubles to us, courtesy the people in charge in Venezuela. I think that's Maduro is the individual's names that's there. So, anyway, I can confirm that firsthand that is actually correctly going on. Julianne was saying, I wonder if he has to pay back his ill-gotten gains. No. Sapphire is correctly right. Nope. Does not have to send it back. It is something that to take something back like that, you would have to in court prove that he's a criminal and that those are ill-gotten gains, and that would start that process. That's not going to happen because of this pardon in large part. And Julianne says Jack Gordon has a video where he had a brain scan done of a conservative and a liberal, and it was difficult on the liberal. Fight or flight, fear mode. I got it. All right, good enough. Okay, let's go ahead and let's switch gears. I want to talk about this case today before the U.S. Supreme Court. This is how crazy these liberals are, my friends. This is why we have to be so grateful that we have elected somebody like Donald Trump to office, because you have these people, these liberals, these woke liberals that think it's okay to allow a child that's 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. They wake up one day, they're having confusion, something's not right in their life, and they decide, I no longer want to be a girl, I want to be a boy. Or I no longer want to be a boy, I want to be a girl. These are the same people that want us to believe there is no sex, there is no boy, there is no girl. It's fluid. You can change it, just like changing your mind. It's just utterly ridiculous. Now listen, I'm not against trans people or gay people or any people. I think everybody should live the life the way they want to live their life. I honestly believe that. I have a lot of people just in my life in general that, all kinds of people that even in my professional career, I work with everybody from all stripes. It does not matter to me. And I so wish that this race nonsense and this these identity politics were just not a reality in our life. But unfortunately, they are. But they want us, again, don't believe your lying eyes. There's no such thing as a man. There's no such thing as a woman. If you're a woman, you need to act like a man. If you're a man, we need to teach you to act like one. This is lunacy. This is craziness. And I think the U.S. Supreme Court understands this. Now, these liberal kooks that are on there, I don't know. It can go either way with these individuals. But friends, they're only talking about restrictions on people that are minors. Now, thankfully, I never had this problem, but can you imagine a child 9, 10, 11, 12 years old? They go through a phase where they're really not sure what's going on in their life. And then you have all these adults engaging in one thing I can't stand, indoctrination, that's feeding on this. What do you think these kids think when they watch the news? Like they turn on the channel right now and I'm talking about this. They get the impression in their mind, oh, maybe I'm not a boy, maybe I'm not a girl. It's just these kids are very easily they are very easily able to fall for indoctrination. You can plant a suggestion in their mind and man, they may fall for it. They may start thinking, hey, maybe I am a girl trapped in a boy's body or vice versa. These are serious things. And I get it. I'm not bashing parents either. I want to be clear about this. I understand. I've seen these parents on TV. They clearly love their children. They have these doctors and these so-called professionals. I think of them as nothing more than people trying to indoctrinate them. And they're telling them, say, hey, it's as simple as this. If you don't allow little Sally to become little Billy, she's going to kill herself. It's going to be like a suicide situation. And I can imagine the parents' fear. They're like, oh, I can't allow that to happen. If she has to turn into a boy, well, then whatever I have to do to keep her healthy and keep her alive, that's what any parent would want for their child. I mean, we want the best for our children. And if you have a so-called professional telling you this, it makes it all the more likely that something like this is going to happen. And the Supreme Court, and thankfully, for example, the state of Tennessee, they recognize this. They recognize that parents can be basically brought down a road and feared into allowing their children to do this. It's just lunacy. And these poor kids, they're just going through a troubling time in their life, a confusing time in their life, whatever. They can't make those decisions until they're at least 18 years old. Hell, you cannot even buy cigarettes legally until you're 18. You can't vote till you're 18. You can't even rent a car from Hertz or Avis until you're 25. But at 10 years old, we're going to allow you to decide to cut something off. It gives me the chills just thinking about that. But it's nuts. It's absolute insanity. Am I the only one around here that thinks that sometimes you open your eyes, you look around at what's going on in life, and you think the world, everybody's went crazy. Everybody's lost their mind. We have to stand up and we have to say enough. We're not tolerating it. This is lunacy. This is inappropriate. We're not allowing children to mutilate their body irreversibly until they're old enough to make that choice themselves. And to that, I say amen. If you agree with me, let me know. Man, I'll stop talking about it. I got it. If you guys get it, I get it. I just, to me, this is very easy. This is very black and white. So, all right, I just checking the comments. Right, let's go ahead and listen to this quick clip here. This is one of the questions that were put to Justice Samuel Alito, and it's just one of the exchanges here that happened during this oral arguments at the United States Supreme Court.
True in every respect, but on page 195 of Cass' report, it says there is no evidence that gender affirmative treatments reduce suicide.
What I think that is referring to is there is no evidence in the studies that.
By the way, this is the guy we talked about yesterday. I don't have anything against this guy either, but this guy, to my knowledge, is the first trans attorney to ever argue before the United States Supreme Court. Good for him. And I will say that he seems like he knows what he's talking about as far as the law goes to some degree. I will say the attorney for the Biden administration, I forgot her name, but she's one sharp lady. She's wrong, but she's really good at trying to twist the law.
That this treatment reduces completed suicide. And the reason for that is completed suicide, thankfully and admittedly, is rare. And we're talking about a very small population of individuals with studies that don't necessarily have completed suicides within them. However, there are multiple studies, long-term longitudinal studies that do show that there is a reduction in suicidality, which I think is a positive outcome to this treatment.
Let me ask a question about another issue that came up during Justice Kagan's questioning and Justice.
So let me tell you this: when they talk about the suicide risk, I mean, the elephant in the room, at least in my mind, was, hey, if you don't allow these procedures for certain kids, they might end up dead. They may take their own lives. They are in such a mental state, they might kill themselves. Well, that science, first of all, is junk science. Number two, if a child is in that state, they need to get that child into a medical facility to get that child appropriate help and ensure that they get through whatever suicide episode they may be going through. Okay, to me, that again just sounds like a no-brainer. The number three, these studies they keep citing, because there's a lot of these studies coming out of Europe. And Europe, as a matter of fact, were the countries that were originally leading this endeavor into allowing these children to mutilate their bodies and to have this sex changement type of procedures. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as it turns out now, Europe is doing an about face on this. They are changing their laws pertaining to this specific surgeries because they now have the evidence, and this is what the justices are talking about, that effectively show this is junk science, that the suicide risk is not as bad as they're trying to make it out to be, and that most importantly, there is a lot of harm from these procedures. These kids are getting this done as minors with their parents' permissions, of course. And then when they are 25, whatever, they're regretting it, if not sooner. There's one activist I saw all over the news today. I don't have her name top of my tongue, but she tried to go from a girl to a boy. She actually had her breast removed. She was taking these hormones, these medications, whatever it is, to change her. And of course, she realized that she is a girl after all, and she regrets her decision. She now lives as a girl. And fortunately, she works as an advocate trying to let people know what we're talking about right now. She's all over the place. She'll talk to anybody that would be happy to put her on camera because she wants to sound the alarm that these procedures, although they sound well-intentioned, they are so wrong for America, and they must, these procedures must be stopped. Jude, thank you for your comment. She says, leave the 3% of the precious trans kids alone. That's right. Life is difficult enough, but out. Well, I agree. I think what you mean by leave them alone is don't change them. I agree. Don't change them. I will say the percentage of trans kids, it kind of varies depending on what statistical study you're listening to. I saw something today when I was looking into this that we're talking about the percentage of the population in this situation might be 0.5, 0.4%. And then when you go all the way up to the current generation, you have you have the millennials, and then what do they call it now? Gen Z, I think. The statistics are as high as 20%, 25%, and that can't be right. It has to be suggestive. It's kind of like everybody's talking about it, so you have more of these young, impressionable kids talking about it. But Jude, I appreciate your comment, and you're right. We need to leave them alone. Stop mutilating their bodies. Amen to that. Okay, let's switch. I want to look at a couple of these articles that I pulled for today's discussion. I want to finish up real quick with the Supreme Court case because there was some interesting tidbits to take out of it. So let's dive into this real quick. I'm not going to read every single word in these articles or these arguments, but some of this stuff we definitely need to take a quick hard look at. Okay, this is from today, and I think this was from, this is Axios. Supreme Court seems likely to uphold ban on gender affirming care. That's the good news from today, if I haven't directly said it. When you listen to the way the justices are questioning the attorneys that are arguing this case, it's very clear, at least in my mind, and obviously to the individual that authored this article, Supreme Court, at least the majority seems they seem poised to uphold the law in Tennessee, which effectively allows the state to ban this type of care for these trans kids. Very, very unfortunate this is going on, but very fortunate. It looks like the justices are going to uphold this rule. I'm not too sure about the 3 liberal justices, so I will tell you that. Not sure which way they're going to come down. I think they're really struggling and really reaching, especially Justice Jackson. She's kind of all over the place when it comes to these things. But anyway, let's touch on this for a second. Supreme Court seemed inclined Wednesday to uphold laws that ban gender-affirming care for transgender youth. The big picture. Medical authorities in the U.S. rarely agree that treatments like puberty blockers and hormone therapy are safe, but the court's conservative justices indicate they do not want to overrule state laws banning them for children. Driving the news, the court heard oral arguments Wednesday, aka today, over a Tennessee law that bans gender-affirming care for minors. Roughly half of the states have similar laws on the books. Generally, it's the conservative states, as you might imagine. The central question before the court is whether Tennessee is simply regulating the practice of medicine or discriminating on the basis of sex. If it's the latter, the state would have to clear a much higher legal bar to defend the law. And that's a lot of what they talked about today, was the fact that is this a sex question, because there's certain things that are protected under one standard of law, or is this another type of law, another type of rule that has a much standard, or I should say a much lower bar in order for the state to be able to do this. So they had a lot of very in-depth, if you like legal stuff like I do, you would love listening to all that legal wrangling today. The three three key conservative votes: Justice John Roberts, he's the head of the Supreme Court, and Justices Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh. By the way, Amy and Brett are both Trump nominees, all seem to come down on Tennessee's side. Kavanaugh, who we've been talking about, cited medical disagreements and tight regulations in Europe, arguing that the science of gender-affirming care is unsettled and that the court should not constitutionalize the issue. Amen to that. Its quotes here says, for us to come in and choose one side of that, knowing that either way people are going to be harmed, there's no perfect way out, he added. And that's all the more reasons why you're going to have to let state legislators decide this. It goes on, two other conservative justices, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, are very unlikely to oppose the bans. Amen. They're very, very conservative, obviously, and that's generally a conservative position. And finally, the intrigue. Just 4 years ago, the court ruled that firing trans workers because they are trans is a form of illegal sex discrimination. Advocates argue that the same logic should apply to healthcare, and that's not correct. They had a big, long, in-depth conversation as to why there's a difference there between those two. So unless you have any questions on that particular subject, we're going to go ahead and shift gears out of the U.S. Supreme Court, because I want to talk briefly about Mayor Eric Adams and then sweet Fani Willis. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a quick peek into this. This is another article where Mayor of New York, Mayor Eric Adams, a.k.a. Donald Trump's new best friend, I think they're going to be new best friends. This is from the Daily Caller. It's an article from today, and he goes, cancel me. Eric Adams says he would love to discuss deporting criminals with Trump's border czar. Very smart of this man. He has his own Democratic Party kind of giving him some shade, if you will. They're coming down on him hard because of his stance. And it's something Donald Trump pointed out. He correctly pointed out that ever since Mayor Adams said he was not happy with all the immigrants in the city of New York, they've kind of turned on him. Remember, Mayor Eric Adams, he used to be a police officer. He's still a liberal guy. And when the immigrants first came, Mayor Eric Adams was happy to see them. He would talk about, oh, look at the moms and the children. And you know, they're just like Americans. They just want a better life. And he thought, what a great thing. But you had all these other immigrants, these illegal immigrants coming to his city, courtesy of the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, just hammering his city with all these people. And then they had crime started up in addition to the expense to house all of these immigrants, these illegal immigrants. He had a change of heart, my friends. Democratic New York Mayor Eric Adams on Tuesday said that he is prepared to sit down with the incoming border czar, Tom Allman, and discuss deporting illegal immigrants who have committed crimes. Adam, who has been grasping with the soaring migrant crisis in New York City, said he is prepared to work alongside President-elect Donald Trump, incoming administration, to tackle the rising crime rates committed by illegal immigrants. He brushed off any concerns regarding the political left's outrage to his willingness to deport dangerous individuals residing in the city. Isn't that beat all that you would have a mayor who wants to uphold the laws of the United States, wants to bring down the crime rate in the city of New York? And we know with current events going on today, New York City clearly has a crime problem, yet this mayor doesn't seem too particularly worried about it. I should say the mayor is concerned about it, but the people that's coming up and opposing him, they don't seem like that it's that big of a deal. They're mad at him now for wanting to protect his citizens. Outrageous. Absolutely. And yeah, Julianne, Texas started all that. It's the great governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. What a wise idea. What a smart man. Instead of Texas sitting there taking all that pain. Basically, it's always been the border states, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California, but California loves it. At least that's what they say publicly with Governor Gavin Newsom, as President Donald Trump calls him. It was the Governor Abbott that said, hey, I got an idea. And he started lining up buses, remember? Started shipping all these illegals, or I should say a very small percentage of, but it was a lot of people, to places like Chicago, New York, and other northern cities. He wanted to spread the pain, let everybody know that this is a serious problem, not just for Texas, but for the entire nation. And to his credit, this obviously has turned out to be a very, very strategic, very wise move on this point. And I don't think, Julian, I think you're right. I don't think Governor Abbott gets enough credit for that. He definitely, clearly, in my opinion, with his actions, really put this in front of the nation in a way that I don't think has ever been done before. And when you get a city like New York City becoming outraged with all the migrant, then you're doing the right thing, because now you have the mayor that wants the changes. All right. Now, switching gears to sweet Fani Willis. Oh, it's just so sad. Someone like sweet Fani Willis of the great state of Georgia. Quick version is, y'all know, she filed this bogus persecution of Donald Trump. She's corrupt. She put in that so-called prosecutor. We're talking about attorney Nathan Wade, aka the RICO prosecutor that had no experience prosecuting anyone, much less he never prosecuted any RICO case. When you take on a RICO case, you're taking on a big case. You're taking on a serious case. Racketeering, internally corrupt organizations. This is probably one of the most lethal and hard-hitting weapons that a prosecutor has to bring about and use against an organization. Much more so when it's an individual like Donald Trump. That's the reason why you never allow these states to pass these laws like RICO. At first, we're just going to go after people like John Gotti, some of these mobsters, some of these companies that are all over the world, and they work together to commit these crimes and hammer our people. And so we pass these laws, and then you get people like Fani Willis that want to get famous, put their names in the history books, become wealthy by extorting money from the U.S. taxpayers, specifically the good taxpayers of the state of Georgia. And this is what they do with these type laws. They prostitute these laws and twist and turn them into novel types of theories of the law in an effort to become rich, get famous, get their name in the news and in the history books, and for career advancement, just like Letitia James from New York. And that's exactly what Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, and the people that associated with her have done and have been trying to do to Donald Trump. Obviously, they have failed in taking down Donald Trump, but that didn't stop them from trying, and it's not stopping them, if you notice. It's not putting a stop to their nonsense. Now, there's a whole list of reasons, but the short version is this case has been over for a long time. I've told you it was over when Ashley Merchant, the great attorney Ashley Merchant out of Marietta, Cobb County, Georgia, she's very tenacious, and she started digging through all the records with open records requests and whatnot. She was representing, I think it was Michael Roman, one of the defendants in the so-called RICO case. She took Fani Willis to task because she blew the lid off the illegal relationship, I think that's probably the best way to say it, of Nathan Wade and Fani Willis. And I think it's going to be Ashley Merchant that's going to be responsible for the eventual imprisonment of Fani Willis and Nathan Wade. And I'd say that pretty definitively because she's the one that got them under oath to say that their relationship did not start until after Nathan Wade was hired by her in her office to take on this so-called RICO case. Just that simple. And they're both under oath lying. We know they have lied, and I am certain that when AG Pam Bondi and other individuals get involved and start drilling down and getting the facts on, they're going to be able to prove that Nathan Wade and her lied under oath, and they're going to be held accountable for a whole list of malfeasance, and I think they should. And these people are not the brightest people in the world. Even recently, Fani Willis and Nathan Wade showed up at a roadside pullover by one of the police officers because Fani Willis's pregnant daughter was pulled over for a speeding ticket. And guess who shows up? Mommy. And mommy's lover boy, Nathan Wade, showed up there on the road. And yet, Nathan Wade said under oath that they broke up in the summer. I think it was summer of 2023. I think it was 2023, 2022, whatever it was. He said they broke up. It was over with. They were only colleagues. And of course, that's not true. They're obviously still BFF, lovers, paramour, whatever you want to call them, and they're out enjoying all that money that Nathan Wade, because Nathan Wade was paid by the taxpayers of the United States / Georgia at least $752 million. They were all going off enjoying all these vacations and everything together. I'm telling you, Judgment Day is coming. They have to know it. But Fani Willis is not giving up the ghost on this dead case. So Trump today asked the Georgia Court of Appeals to dismiss racketeering cases brought by Fani Willis. President-elect Donald Trump asked the Georgia Court of Appeals to quash the criminal racketeering case filed, or I should say against him in Fulton County, saying the Constitution forbids his persecution / prosecution because he will be inaugurated as president in January. And I think that's easy, simple way to put it. You cannot have a local state prosecutor with some type of felonious, incarcerating type charges against the man that embodies the executive branch of the federal government, aka President-elect Donald Trump. It is seriously a constitutional crisis that cannot be allowed to stand. So he has filed what's called an interlocutory appeal. Normally, appeals, remember, you can only file these appeals when the entire case is over with. You can file what's called an interlocutory appeal. That's what he has done, filed it with the Georgia Court of Appeals. And I'm pretty certain that if they act on this really quickly, he's going to find a way to kick it up to the Court of Appeals, the actual federal Court of Appeals, if not the United States Supreme Court, to bring an end to these charges. All these other cases are going to have to go away one way or the other. It says the 5-page filing says the sitting president must be completed from criminal prosecution at the federal or state level. It says prosecution would interfere with the executive's ability to carry out his duties. Any ongoing criminal proceeding against a sitting president must be dismissed under U.S. Constitution. Defense attorney Steve Sato said he's a great attorney. We see him in action. He knows exactly what's going on and what he's done. The 2 federal criminal cases have already been dismissed by the DOJ, the Department of Justice. Mr. Sato referred to 2 cases brought by special counsel Jack Smith, who recently asked the federal courts in Washington and Florida, remember he's handling them 2 cases against President-elect Donald Trump, to dismiss the indictments related to the 2020 election and classified documents found at Mr. Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, Florida. A New York judge indefinitely postponed sentencing of Mr. Trump's conviction for falsifying business records. So Mr. Trump is trying to hit for the cycle and get rid of his Georgia case. They're going to have to dismiss that case in New York. Judge Merchant really has no choice for the same reasons I just outlined. And Donald Trump has filed papers related to that case additionally today, and the case that Jack Smith bought, the one before that Judge Chuckin, that's already gone. That case is over with. Right now you have the Judge Merchant and you have Alvin Bragg, that crooked city attorney general, district attorney up there in New York City. They know that case is also over with. They want to hold the case for 4 years, but that is not going to happen for all the reasons we just discussed. And there's one other little problem, one other little reason they're going to have to hold on to that case, ladies and gentlemen, until they're going to have to throw it out. They cannot hold on to it for 4 more years because there's just this one little pesky problem. There's a law in New York State that says that after a conviction, which has already happened in the New York case, the judge must sentence the defendant within 12 months, 1 year. He cannot postpone it. If he does postpone it, it's going to be thrown out for that reason alone, or at least it could be thrown out for that reason alone. But more likely, it's going to be thrown out by one of the Court of Appeals or U.S. Supreme Court if Judge Merchant does not do the same thing. And of course, we'll have to wait and see exactly what the Georgia Court of Appeals does. But the writing's already on the wall in all these cases. Mr. Trump respectfully submits that upon reaching that decision, this court should dismiss his appeal for lack of jurisdictions with directions to the trial court to immediately dismiss the indictment against President Trump. The filing says Fulton County District Attorney Sweet Fani Willis started investigating Mr. Trump after he, I should add, allegedly, Pressure Secretary of State Brad Raffenberg by phone to dig up enough votes to overturn Mr. Biden's 2020 electoral victory. And say that's not exactly correct, by the way. He did not pressure him. He said, I need you to find 11,000 some odd votes. If you go to the Webster Dictionary and you look up the word find, it's interesting because the word find is not, let's see, definition. This will be an interesting thing. To find something means to discover or perceive by chance, such as unexpectedly. So he wanted him to discover 11,500 votes, or to recognize or discover. It doesn't include, ladies and gentlemen, doesn't include anything, not anything pertaining to having to make up 11,500 votes or to commit some type of fraud or something like that. It does not say that, and they know it, and they don't like this. They don't like these pesky little facts that they're going to have to deal with. Does that make any sense? It's just, I find it hilarious when you get right down to it. Julie Ann makes a comment here, one way to the Big Apple. Yes, absolutely. I am very confident, Lisa, when I tell you that definitively these people are going to pay for the malfeasance that they have committed. Law and Crime reports it this way: the unconstitutionality of this continued indictment. Trump asked Georgia Court of Appeals to fully steamroll Fani Willis and dismiss RICO case with an inquiry into its own jurisdiction. A lot of legal jumble, but this is exactly what they're saying. This is NBC 10 out of Philadelphia. Trump asked Georgia court to end criminal election interference cases, and he also cites his White House win, which of course he needs to do because that's one of the reasons he's asking the Georgia Court of Appeals to dismiss this case, I'm assuming with prejudice. And same thing on MSNBC. You know how happy they are to report this story. They really start digging into this. They are outraged about the whole thing. But again, you know, these pesky facts, what can you say, right? It just happens to be that. Here's the actual interlocutory appeal that was filed today on behalf of President-elect Donald Trump. Briefly, President Donald Trump hereby notifies this court of the following jurisdictionally, constitutionally, of his continued indictment and prosecution by the state of Georgia. In this case, giving rise to this appeal, now he is president-elect and will soon become the 47th president of the United States. Boom. And they list out all the reasons why the Georgia Court of Appeals should immediately intervene and dismiss this bogus case that is clearly in violation of the United States Constitution. Additionally, Fani Willis has been having all kinds of bad things happen to her. We talked yesterday about the fact that the guy over Judicial Watch, Tim Fitton, he has been requesting under the law, there's a law in Georgia, an open records law. He wants the records. He's trying to prove what we all know has been going on there. This has been part of a big web, a big orchestrated event between the Biden-Harris White House, Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Jack Smith, all these prosecutions, if you will, all part of a scheme. You talk about RICO. This is racketeering, internally corrupt organization. That's what this is, racketeering. It's conspiring together illegally, I might add, to effectively deny you and me the ability to vote for who we want to be president of the United States. That's what these people have engaged in, and I believe that's exactly what's going to be proved, and that's what Tim Fitton over at Judicial Watch, by the way, he's got a great channel. If you haven't checked out his channel, make sure that you do so. But she, Fani Willis, refused to give the open records request. Said, oh, we don't have any open records. She's also been defying the state Senate. Remember, we talked about this yesterday, the state Senate hearing, where she was compelled under the law to show up and answer these questions. She don't want to answer these questions. She knows the walls of justice are about to start closing in on her. But the good news, bad news for Fani Willis, good news for Tim Fitton and Judicial Watch Incorporated, is the judge signed the following order granting plaintiff's motion for default judgment. On 22nd August 2023, plaintiff Judicial Watch Incorporated submitted open records request to the defendant, District Attorney Fani Willis, seeking all documents and communications sent to, received from, relating to Special Counsel Jack Smith, and all the documents, communications sent to, received from the United States House January 6th Committee. So I won't bore you with all the details in here, but I love reading this stuff here. This is to me, this is like a good mystery novel. He's basically saying, I want any and all documents, correspondence between you and any of these people that we know are part of this grand scheme. And that's exactly what is going on in this case. Again, you got MSNBC. They're talking, these people are mad. You knew that they would be mad about this. But they want to talk about like there's something sinister going on here. It says, why Trump's attempt to dismiss the New York Cushman case warrants attention. Well, it warrants attention, in my opinion, because it's a violation of the Constitution. It's illegal to prosecute a president-elect and or a sitting president. But I won't dive into that too deeply right at this particular time. And you have a lot of, let's just say, authorities on the Constitution begging Fani Willis and these other prosecutors, drop this nonsense. You're going to get yourself in just deeper trouble, and you cannot win against a sitting president of the United States. And I have to echo that sentiment. I think that's absolutely true and spot on. And by the way, we don't have time to go through it tonight, but here is 80 pages of the motion filed in New York City, these people of the state of New York versus Donald J. Trump. And this is the president, December 3rd, 2024, just filed notice of President Donald J. Trump's motion to dismiss pursuant to, and they cite the law. And this is Todd Blanche. We've been talking about him tonight. And he goes in excruciating detail, including a table of contents for your quick reference if you need so. Briefly, just to highlight this, President Donald Trump respectively submits this motion to dismiss this indictment and vacate, adios, that is what vacate means, the jury's verdicts pursuant to the law, the president's immunity doctrine, the Presidential Transaction Act, and the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution all require that as a result, that all this be dismissed. Yesterday, in issuing a 10-year pardon, he cites Hunter Biden in this. I think this was classic. I like the way he intertwines all this criminal activity, as they allege. And I don't think they're far off on that. Yesterday, in issuing a 10-year pardon to Hunter Biden that covers any and all crimes, whether charged or uncharged, President Biden asserts that his son was, quote, selectively and unfairly prosecuted, end quote, and, quote, treated differently, end quote. President Biden argued that raw politics has infected this process and led to this miscarriage of justice. These comments amount to an extraordinary condemnation of President Joe Biden's own DOJ. That's exactly right, Donald Trump. This is the same DOJ that coordinated and oversaw the politically motivated election interference witch hunts targeting President Donald Trump by disgraceful and disgraced special counsel Jack Smith. The other biased prosecutors and Smith's special counsel, the SCO and others. This is the same DOJ that sent Matthew Colangelo, how do you say his name? Colangelo, Michael Colangelo. Remember, we talked about him to the DA Bragg to help him unfairly target President Donald Trump in his attempt. He lays it all out in this indictment. Remember this Matthew Colangelo, he was number 3 at the Department of Justice, and they want you to believe, and again, this is all going to come out, they want you to believe that one day he just had an epiphany saying, you know, I think I'll move to New York City, take a much lower rank, a much lower paying job, and I'll have Alvin Bragg as my new boss. That's what I'm going to do. Of course, we know that's nonsense. We know that he was basically the liaison to coordinate all this between all these prosecutors and all these different offices. This is all going to come out, my friends. Mark my words. This is going to get good. And I tell you what, I'll be here, Lord willing. If he doesn't call me home in the meantime, I'll be right here to show you every excruciating and delightfully salacious detail. And yes, I am in a good mood today. I guess y'all can tell. So, all right. I don't want to let this go too long. I try to keep the power hour to an hour. Didn't work out that way tonight, but you get the idea. We will revisit this issue, and I'll keep you all apprised of exactly what's going on. And of course, I am J.R. Dukes. I appreciate everybody being with me today. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm all about ending the terrible disease of indoctrination. I love to talk about political events, current events, the law, police matters, anything to do with the people that are in power. We must make sure we understand what's going on in our lives, and we hold the people that are elected, the people that have power over us. We must hold these people accountable for their decisions, for their actions. And at the end of the day, I want to help you live your best life possible by understanding the world that we live in, because we need to teach all of these facts, all of these little nuances we need to know in our lives. We need to teach these to our children and our grandchildren. We need to do what we can to save this great and wonderful country that we have, that we call the United States of America. I want to thank everybody joining me today. Thank you for all my friends over on the X platform, everyone on YouTube, and of course on Twitch. You can find me on all platforms as simply at JR Dukes. Of course, on X, I am at Reach JR Dukes. I try to talk to you often. I love to talk. If you need to contact me, my information is at the bottom. Feel free, as AT&T used to say, and reach out and touch me. You know, kind of dating myself there, right, with the age and whatnot. And I do apologize. My jokes are a little corny and dry, as my kids say. They're dad jokes, but at any rate, I appreciate everybody being here with me today. It has been a pleasure. Thank you, Julianne, for being with me. DC is going to run out of criminal defense. So yeah, that's very, very, very likely true. Jude, thank you for being here with me. It's a pleasure. My friend over at Sapphire Ridge News. If y'all haven't checked out his channel, he's got a new channel he started not long ago. It's at Sapphire Ridge News. My friend Mark, good friend of mine. Be sure to stop by and say hello to him. American Nana, it's always good to see you. I don't see my friend Matt in the conversation yet, but Matt, I hope you're doing well. I meant to call you out yesterday, and thank you for being with us. But anyone that I missed, I do apologize. Always great to have y'all into the conversations and chatting with us. Always like to say, my friends, keep that mind free. Never give up until next time. I am J.R. Dukes.